Ladies and gentlemen, who do you look up to in the world of chess? Maybe it's Magnus Carlsen, the GOAT of endgames. Or maybe it's Bobby Fischer, who played the brilliant game of the century. Well, in this game, we're going to look at a game between Richard Réti and Alexander Alekhine. Both were incredibly good players of the early 20th century. So let's get into the game. Richard Réti plays g3 and the king's fianchetto opening. Alekhine responds with e5, knight f3, which is a very unusual move. Usually when you want to play bishop g2 here, or c4, or anything else. Because g3 is a very flexible move. Knight f3. The problem with knight f3 is e4. Your knight will get kicked around several times. After knight d4, Alekhine plays d5 instead. So the refutation to this would be c5, knight b3, c4, knight d4. You'll notice that all white has done is play knight f3, knight d4, knight b3, knight d4. So he's just moved his knight a bunch of times. Bishop c5, c6, and knight c6. Black is up in development, has more central space, and the extra move g3 is quite useless. In this line, white will be fighting for equality. Back to the main line, e4, knight d4, and d5. d3, a good move, striking back at the center. And now e takes d3. This is quite a timid response. Here, knight f6 would be better, trying to keep the center together. E takes d3, queen takes d3, knight f6, bishop g2, and bishop b4 check. Small inaccuracy here. The point of bishop b4 is so that black can castle faster, but it also speeds white's development up. After bishop d2, takes, and castles. You'll notice that black is castled, but white has all their pieces out already. And now c4, a good move. Réti gives black no time to consolidate and immediately trades black's central pawn, while also improving this bishop. After some inaccurate opening play, both sides now play very well. Knight a6, the best reply. C takes d5, and now knight b4, winning back the pawn with a knight. Queen c4, knight b takes d5, and knight 2b3, securing the knight on d4. If white played the castles, then knight b6 would be annoying, because the queen now has a choice of where to go, and none of them seem very appealing. You either go forward into an awkward square, or you go backwards. Back to the main line, knight 2b3, c6, reinforcing black's best piece, the d5 knight. And so now Réti's plan is to play b4, b5, to attack the queen side and undermine the d5 knight. This is a strong but rather slow plan, so Alekhine is forced to search for counterplay on the king side. This is a very standard procedure. When you have a bishop raking this side of the board, pressuring all these pawns and pieces, you want to start attacking with your pawns to undermine the opponent's structure on this side, so this bishop becomes so much more stronger. Castles, rook e8, rook d1, bishop g4. Alekhine now is going for a quick counterplay against the e2 pawn. Rook d2, queen c8, another typical maneuver. Black sets up a battery to try to trade off white's light squared bishop on g2. Knight c5. Now the b pawn can advance, following Réti's pet plan. Bishop h3 and bishop f3. If you're wondering, white can't win a pawn here. Bishop takes h3, queen takes h3, knight takes b7 is now a mistake because of knight g4, attacking the h2 pawn, threatening checkmate in 2. Knight f3 is forced. Now knight de3. F takes c3, knight takes e3, threatening now checkmate on g2. Queen takes f7. If king takes f7, then now black is completely lost after knight g5, forking the king and the queen. So after queen takes f7, king h8 is forced. Knight h4 and rook f8, and now the queen is lost. If the queen wants to move anywhere, like queen e7, then the rook f1 check, rook takes f1, and queen takes f1 is checkmate. So white can't really win a pawn without suffering a massive attack. Bishop f3, bishop g4, bishop g2, bishop h3, bishop f3, bishop g4. And now bishop h1. Réti refuses a draw. He could have repeated moves, which is understandable against Alexander Alekhine, which was a very strong player at that time. But I guess Réti just wanted to play for a win. h5 and b4. You can now see both sides are now pushing their own plan. Alekhine is going for a massive attack, while Réti is going for a queenside minority attack. a6, rook c1, h4, a4, h6 g3, h6 g3, and queen c7. b5. This move has been criticized, but there seems to be nothing better. A takes b5, a takes b5, and now it looks like white's queenside counterplay is really coming in. Like, oh my god, the bishop is just raking down this file. The knights are all working together, the c file. But now, Alexander Alekhine is like, oh, I seem to be in a little bit of trouble. Why not sacrifice a rook? Kaboom! Rook to e3. The rook sacrifice ignites the board. Réti plays knight to f3, which is unfortunately a losing move. White has several options to meet the threat of rook takes g3 check. We have checkmated in a couple of moves, and it is very hard to decide which move is best. Alekhine has claimed all the other lines are better for black, and most annotators have followed his lead. But as we shall see, this is not correct. Let's look at some other options. First of all, you can't take the rook because of queen takes g3, bishop g2, knight takes c3, and there's no way to stop checkmate like this. So you can't take the rook. What if you take the pawn on c6? Now this also loses to rook takes g3, bishop g2. If you take the rook, queen g3, and it's the same type of knight with knight e3. So you have to play bishop g2. Now knight to e3 anyways. F takes e3 and bishop h3. Now this attack is super strong, and it's going to be checkmate in 9 according to the computer, which is I can't really see that, but anyways. Let's look at bishop takes d5. So back here, bishop takes so knight f3, bishop takes d5. Problem with this is now c takes d5, queen b4, rook takes g3, f takes g3, queen g3, king h1, and black has a decisive attack. Let's look at now bishop f3. This seems to be a better move than knight f3, because after bishop takes f3, e takes f3, c takes b5. In between move, you can't take the rook because your queen is hanging. Knight takes b5, queen a5. If you take the rook, then queen takes d2, and this is devastating. So rook takes d5, taking the knight. Rook e1 check, rook takes c1, queen takes c1, king g2. Knight takes d5, queen takes d5. And white has 2 knights for the rook, but there's now rook a1, and with a decisive attack on the first rank, which is very powerful, and black forces a draw. Now let's look at the line after king h2, which is a very strong move. Rook a3, continuing third rank attack. If you take the rook, then here comes knight takes c3, and suddenly your queen is hit. Let's say you move your queen like somewhere. Actually, wait. Yeah, like queen b4. Then knight f1 check comes, and the rook and the queen line up to g3, and this is devastating. So after knight to d3, so after rook a3, white has to play knight to d3, blocking the connection of the rooks and not allowing the queen to go to e5. Queen to a5 instead, rook to b2, rook to a4 attacking the queen, queen to c2, rook to e8, b takes c6, rook takes d4, c takes b7. Now what is going on? Black is up a piece, but white has a monster passed pawn. This is a very unclear position, and anyone could win or lose. So after all these options, it seems to be bishop f3 to be the best, forcing a draw. Or maybe this line, where white is down a piece, but has a very strong pawn. Now let's go back to the main line. Réti plays knight f3, and now the problem with this move is c takes b5, attacking the queen. Queen takes back, and knight to c3, attacking the e2 pawn. If you take the rook, you lose the queen takes g3. The rook is never takeable because the f pawn will lose its defense of g3. Queen takes g7, queen takes. Now knight takes e2 check. King h2, and look at this position. There's so many pieces that are hanging. The c1 rook is hanging. The knight on f3 is hanging. The rook on e3 is hanging. How many moves has the rook on e3 been hanging? It played rook e3 and now it's just staying there. And surprisingly, none of the best moves are to take a piece. The best move is to play knight to e4, attacking the d2 rook and the f2 pawn. If instead Alekhine played bishop takes f3, this would be a draw. This would be a drawn endgame. If he played rook takes f3, then rook takes e2. And even though Alekhine's up the pawn, this should still be a draw. And if Alekhine took the rook in the corner, then f takes c3, and this is also a draw. So he plays a very accurate move, knight to e4, rook c4, knight takes f2, bishop g2, and bishop e6. Now the remaining moves are quite forced. Rook c to c2, knight g4 check, king h3, knight e5 check, king h2, rook takes f3, rook takes e2, knight g4 check, king h3, knight e3 check, king h2, knight takes c2, bishop takes f3, knight d4. And now in this position, Réti resigned, because if you try to defend your bishop, then takes, bishop d4 is a double attack, and you can't defend your knight after you move the rook. So, this is an amazing game, especially the rook e3 sacrifice. Like, that came out of nowhere. Let me just go back. Like, in this position, you think, oh, white is doing quite well, you know, the queenside pressure and everything. But now just rook e3 out of nowhere. Just absolutely amazing. So, this game is quite instructive. What I learned out of this is that, like, in this position, when Alekhine was faced with the prospect of a queenside attack, he didn't defend passively. He found counterplay and played actively. So this is something I will remember in my games. Also, when you have a long-range bishop on the long diagonal, it's very typical to start a queenside minority attack to undermine the pawn structure and make the bishop more powerful. Anyways, I hope you liked this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.